Education was meant to liberate the mind, but look around and see what it has become. A factory that produces obedient workers, not free thinkers. Osho once said, "Your education has prepared you to serve the system, not to question it." And he was right. The modern education system teaches memory, not intelligence. It teaches competition, not compassion. Children are loaded with facts like machines, but their capacity to observe, to wonder, to think independently, is slowly killed. Krishnamurti warned us decades ago that education without self-knowledge only creates clever devils. And now, what do we have? Doctors who can cure the body but are sick inside. Engineers who can build bridges but cannot bridge the gap between human hearts. Leaders who can speak beautifully but whose hearts are empty of truth. This failure of education has made humanity vulnerable, weak, and ready to be manipulated. If you cannot think for yourself, someone else will think for you, and that is what politics thrives on. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, said that rulers should be philosophers, lovers of wisdom. But today, rulers are not philosophers. They are masters of strategy and deception. Machiavelli in The Prince openly said that if a ruler wants to stay in power, he must learn how to lie, how to manipulate, how to play with people's emotions. And that is exactly what happens today, in the name of democracy. Leaders do not need your intelligence. They need your anger, your fear, your blind loyalty. Why? Because an angry crowd is easy to control. A fearful mind will cling to any savior. So they give you enemies, real or imagined. They whisper in your ears, your culture is in danger. Your religion is under attack. Your nation is threatened. And suddenly, your blood boils, your reasoning disappears, and you start fighting for an idea that someone else planted in your head. Look at the reality. Have you ever asked why politicians talk more about religion and culture during elections than about education or healthcare? Why do they remind you of your caste, your community, your language? Because these are deep identifications. You were born into them. You never questioned them. Acharya Prashant often says that the deepest slavery is the slavery of thought, and this slavery begins with identity. When someone says, "You are a Hindu, you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, and the other person is your enemy," it hits you in the gut because you have never observed that these are just ideas, mental tags that you never chose. They were given to you, and now these tags are weapons. They divide people, create groups, and then power flows to those who control the groups. It is a very old game. Take any example from history. In ancient Rome, when people were unhappy, rulers gave them bread and circuses. Feed them and entertain them, and they will never question your authority. Today's version is different. Social media propaganda, fake news, religious slogans, cultural pride. The methods have changed, but the strategy is the same. Instead of bread and circus, now you have hashtags and hate speeches. They make you feel proud of your heritage while quietly looting your present and destroying your future. You clap when they talk about your ancestors, but you stay silent when your children have no good schools. This is the tragedy that both Osho and Krishnamurti warned about. As long as you seek security in identities, you will be a victim of exploitation. Have you noticed how leaders speak during crises? When there is an economic problem, they rarely talk about economics. They talk about religion, morality, family values. Why? Because if you start questioning the real issues, jobs, inflation, education, they are in trouble. So they throw dust in your eyes. They show you the enemy. Sometimes the enemy is another country. Sometimes it is another community. Sometimes it is a single person. But always the pattern is the same. Create fear, provoke anger, and then present themselves as the savior. And you believe it because your mind has been trained to believe, not to doubt. Education failed you there. True education would have taught you how to doubt, how to question, how to think beyond the noise. But instead, it taught you to obey authority, to follow the herd, to memorize answers, not to ask real questions. Plato warned in the Republic that when ignorance rules, democracy turns into tyranny. People who are uneducated in wisdom choose leaders based on emotions, not understanding. And Machiavelli knew this truth very well. He said a ruler should appear religious even if he is not, because people love the appearance of virtue more than virtue itself. Look at modern politics. Leaders pose as protectors of faith, defenders of tradition, but in their private life they care nothing for it. It is only a mask, a performance, a show to win your trust. And it works because people are asleep, because education never awakened them. What would Osho say to this? He would laugh and say, "You have given power to the cunning because you are asleep." He always reminded people that politics depends on your unconsciousness. If you are awake, nobody can provoke you. If you know who you are beyond religion, beyond culture, beyond nationality, then no leader can make a fool of you. But this awakening is dangerous to the system. That is why the system never promotes real education. It promotes job-oriented training. They don't want Buddhas, they want workers. They don't want thinkers, they want followers. That is why you see graduates with degrees, but without intelligence. They can solve equations, but they cannot solve their own anger. They can code software, but they cannot decode the propaganda in media. Now look at social media campaigns during elections. One video, one slogan, and millions of minds catch fire. Why? Because these minds are dry wood, full of frustration, insecurity, and identity-based pride. A single spark of, "Your culture is in danger," and the fire of hatred begins. And who benefits? Those who lit the fire. And this is not about one country, it is global. In America, leaders shout about American values. In India, they cry for Bharatiya culture. In the Middle East, they talk about defending Islam. Everywhere, the strategy is the same. Machiavelli would smile from his grave, because his lesson is alive. Keep people divided, keep them emotional, and you will rule them forever. Acharya Prashant often says, if your sense of self depends on an idea, you will always be manipulated. When your identity is fragile, you defend it violently. That is why propaganda works. They don't need to control your body, they only need to control your story, who you think you are. Once that story is theirs, you are theirs. You will fight their wars, vote for their agendas, and even die for their slogans. And all the while, you will think you are free. This is the greatest illusion, to be a slave and believe you are independent. So what is the solution? J. Krishnamurti was very clear. Revolt, not against governments, not against systems, but against the inner conditioning. The real revolution is psychological. As long as you belong to a herd, you will be led. As long as you seek security and belonging, you will be exploited. Education must teach freedom, not just the freedom to choose a career, but the freedom to see, to understand, to question. But who will teach this when teachers themselves are conditioned? That is why Krishnamurti said, you are both the teacher and the student. You must start with yourself. Imagine if schools taught children how the mind works, how fear and desire control thoughts, how propaganda uses language, how identity shapes perception. Imagine if students were encouraged to doubt, to debate, to think beyond borders. Then no politician could play these dirty games. But today, we do the opposite. We feed children stories of pride and prejudice, of us and them. We tell them who their enemies are before they can even think. We train them to memorize the names of kings, but not to question the hunger of the poor. We tell them how to pass exams, but not how to live with awareness. And then we are shocked when society is full of hate. Hate is taught silently in classrooms, in temples, in homes, through words like ours and theirs. And politics only waters this seed. Look at a practical example. Riots. Do you think riots happen because people suddenly become violent? No. Riots are prepared, slowly, through speeches, through social media posts, through fake news. Leaders and their teams study your fears, your desires, your wounds, and they press those buttons. This is pure psychology. Machiavelli understood it long ago, but today, it is science. Algorithms decide what news you see, what emotions you feel. One community is told, they are stealing your jobs. Another is told, they are insulting your faith. Both sides burn, and while they fight, the real thieves sit in power, untouched. Osho would say, drop all borrowed identities. Krishnamurti would say, observe your thought without judgment. Acharya Prashant would say, stop being a consumer of noise. If you can do this, you become free, not only from politicians, but from all manipulation. Then you see clearly that culture, religion, nation, these are just useful agreements, not ultimate truths. They can help us live together, but they should not divide us. The day we see this, politics will change. But until then, the game will continue, and we will keep electing actors, not leaders, speakers, not thinkers.